Hello one and all, and welcome back to Slay the Spire 2. My name is Sean Splains, and today we're going to start on the next character, who will be the Silent, a huntress from outside the Spire, ready to stab and poison anything in her way. We played as Ironclad last time, and we had Burning Blood, which gave us extra 6 HP at the end of every combat. But now we have Ring of the Snake, which gives us an extra 2 cards at the start of each combat. So one thing that's important to remember between these two is that you're not going to have the healing at the end of each battle anymore. I have seen and heard from my friends mentioning that they keep forgetting sometimes when they're playing a lot of Ironclad and then they switch to another character. Always note what you have available to you at all times. We've got some options here. So this is Neow. Whenever you play a run after your first run, you're going to be met with this screen and you're going to have 3 options similar to the Ancients that we get at the end of each act. Here we have the options of Precise Scissors to remove a card from our deck. As I mentioned, removing your Strikes and Defends is a really good option because they are your weakest cards. Also important to note that last time when we played with the Ironclad, we had 4 Defense and 5 Strike, and we had Bash as our extra card. Here we actually get 5 of each, plus Neutralize, which applies Weaken to the enemy, and Survivor, which is an extra block card that does 8 block and allows us to discard a card. This isn't a mechanic that we saw before using discard. This means we just remove a card from our hand and it will go into our discard pile. We'll be able to play it later in the combat. We can remove a card, we can pick up 150 gold. Whenever you see this, you would just look at your map and think, do I want to hit an early shot? And would I find this useful with my path? So sometimes what I would do is I would actually decide on my path beforehand and then look at the options properly and see what I want to do, but also try and take that into consideration. Since I don't have the extra HP from the Burning Blood Relic and instead I've got the extra 2 additional cards, I don't feel as comfortable taking on as many elites with this character. Although sometimes your build does allow you to take on 3 elites even, especially if you've got campfires in between to heal, but I don't feel that comfortable with them. So I think what I might do is challenge through this middle path that allows us to get 3 bonfires before the elite, which means we will have a chance to smith cards and try and stay at as full HP as possible. And we get a little shot before here, which will give us a chance to add potentially more cards or a relic to give us the strength to fight this elite. And I'll take it easy this act and then give myself the chance to build up something to help me in the following act. Our third option is Leafy Poultice, which allows us to transform a strike and a defend into a completely random card of random rarity, but we lose 12 max HP. This would force us to go down to 58, which is very low and it's quite high risk, but it is considered probably the best option for this character because a lot of the cards that they have are just better than your strikes and defends, and this can really lift your build. It's high risk, but this is the option that I'm going to be taking today. We get After Image and Bouncing Flask. Both of these are really good for different reasons. One is a poison card, a new mechanic which applies to the Silent. Poison is a debuff that lands on the enemy, and based on the number, this hits 3 times. So let's say it hits the same enemy 3 times, it now has 9 poison. At the end of the turn, before the enemy attacks, they're going to take 9 damage, and the poison's going to go down by 1, which means the next turn will take 8 damage. So if you can block consistently and never take damage from the opponent, they would take 9 plus 8 plus 7 plus 6 plus 5, etc. So this has the capability to do a lot of damage. And then we have After Image, which is a power that whenever we play any card after it, we get 1 block, which is also insanely good if we have a lot of draw and a lot of energy. So now we're probably going to try and tailor our deck around this and have a poison deck that forces us to play a lot of cards. Here, like I said, I wanted to go through this middle path, and I still want to do that after my decision. I think I want to go here, and then I'll go left to get an extra mystery. I'll go up here to get this bonfire. Even though it says rest site, I'm going to keep on calling them bonfires. Sorry for the confusion with terminology. We get our relic. We'll go here into the merchant, here into another bonfire, and then straight up into the boss. We'll see how we get on with this. Let's go. Similarly to the Ironclad, we're always going to have 3 energy, and as you can see we draw 7 instead of 5 cards. This only applies to turn 1, so that's important to note. We have Neutralize, which is 0 cost, allows us to just reduce his damage output, which is really good. And now we're faced with the same dilemma as before of we want to obviously minimise our damage, but because we don't have the healing, it means we have less room to just take little bits of chip over time. So I'm actually going to fully defend this turn. instead of getting that crucial bouncing flask off. Here we're going to get the power off and then play this card, which now forces us to discard a card. In this case we don't need to block anymore, so I'm going to get rid of defend. And then we'll play a strike. This turn Inhibit's just going to give himself an attack buff, so we're free to just go for attack. Unfortunately I won't get to show you just now because I am going to hit him with strike, but if I wasn't to hit him with strike and I let him keep his 5 block, the poison actually goes through block and goes straight to health, so it would consistently still do 9 damage. As we see, we've got a little green bar to help give you a visual aid, so if I hit him twice here, we'll see that the green bar actually consumes the rest of his HP and his health is now glowing green. That means he will definitely die from poison this turn, and you don't need to worry about blocking. There we go. We get 10 gold. We actually get really lucky and get the potion off of the lowest chance. And now we've got 3 different options. We've got Mirage, which is a skill that exhausts as soon as you use it, but you gain block equal to poison on all enemies. Flechettes, which allows you to get 5 damage for each skill in your hand. This is going to be a pretty crucial attack for us in this run, because I think with us being a poison based build, we'll probably have a lot of skills. And then Infinite Blades, which is a power that allows you to have a Shiv at the start of each turn in your hand. Shiv is another mode that this character has, that they can just effectively play a lot of 0 cost 4 damage attacks. And as we'll see with cards that drop, there will be abilities to get a lot of Shivs into your hand, but that's not the angle we're going to go for today. I'll save that for a future run. Here I'm going to actually push for Flechettes, and I'm going to try and pick up more skills so that this does more damage over time. Tablet of Truth. You defeat a pair of Guardian Kin and make your way into a protected vault. Inside is a tablet with familiar inscriptions. Your intuition tells you that this language can be deciphered rather easily. However, once you begin deciphering, you'll be locked in. The tablet gives off a soothing energy, and you can smash it to receive its healing energies instead. So this would be really good if we found it when we're actually kind of half HP, and then this works like a free bonfire where you can actually heal yourself off of it. But because we're at full HP, we're going to take the losing 3 max to get an upgrade, and then we're going to stop reading and leave because we don't really want to lose much more. But I will tell you that if you were to continue pressing this button over and over again, you go all the way down to 1 max HP and you upgrade every card that's currently in your deck. So if you get this quite late on and you've got about 25 cards, this would be a really good event to take yourself down to 1 HP, as long as you have the confidence that you will never take damage. I have seen it being done. There will be other videos out there of people doing this, so feel free to check them out to see if you could follow the same skill level for that. As you begin deciphering the tablet, the Kin's mantra speaks to you. The truth is everything. But we're going to walk out. You stop all the reading and deciphering, your body normalises, though you can't help but wonder what the truth was. Fortunately, I've told you, so you don't need to worry. Now we'll go into another event room. We get another event. We're getting really fortunate with these event rooms. Wellspring. You trace a low rumble to its source and find yourself captivated by a tranquil wellspring. The water is an emerald green with clusters of glowing moat. It looks inviting. What can possibly go wrong? We could take a random potion here, or we can remove a card from our deck and add 1 guilty curse to our deck. This is the first instance of us seeing a curse, which are a bunch of bad cards you really don't want, and they're always given to you in certain situations. This is probably the best one because after 5 combats, it removes itself from your deck. So this is effectively I can remove a strike or a defend in 5 turns, and I always take this option. Here I'm going to remove a strike because our build is mostly focused on poison and defense. And now after that, if we were being really smart, we would probably try and take 5 fights before getting to the elite. But unfortunately, it looks like we're going to be hitting this elite as the 5th fight. Here, this Shrinker Beetle, as we saw in the last act, is going to do the debuff, so we'll take this as an opportunity to hit him with an after image, and we'll hit him with a bouncing flask. So he's on a timer and he's only going to last a set amount of turns. Here we can defend plus, or beforehand we can actually play Flechettes, which will do 3 damage 3 times. Then we can play defend, and then we can strike. And this turn, for quickness, because we're already going to kill him with poison, we can just end turn. And we can go 17 gold and get 3 other options for cards. We've got Dagger Throw, which is a personal favourite of mine, It does 9 damage, or when upgraded, does 12 damage for 1 energy, and it allows us to draw and discard a card. So if we have a card in our hand that we don't want, but there's a potential one in our deck that we do want, we can use this to help us cycle through and get to what we want. We have a 0 cost defense card that will give us 4 block, or it will give us 7 block when upgraded. And we have Poison Stab, which is basically a strike that also applies 3 poison, but like I mentioned earlier, that's actually 3-2-1, so technically this is 12 damage for 1 energy, or when upgraded it goes up to 18 damage for 1 energy. We'll take Poison Stab. Go into the next combat. When we draw our guilty, it will now say 4 combats, so it consistently keeps telling you how many turns you've got until you're rid of the thing. We can use Neutralise, so he's now doing 3 damage. We can always remove the damage by 25%, which is why it doesn't seem that efficient there, but it's enough for us. We'll attack him a couple times. This guy always starts with attacking you turn 1, and then he'll buff turn 2, and then he will attack 2 times and buff, 2 times and buff. Here we'll After Image and Bouncing Flask to get a lot of poison on him. Gives himself 7 strength, which can seem scary, but he's still only doing 11 damage, or when we do this, 8 damage. We'll use Flechettes, and we'll use Bouncing Flask. 19 poison, and that's how quickly Bouncing Flask can get good. Here we have Speedster, a power that I almost never use. Whenever you draw a card during your turn, deal 2 damage to all enemies. This definitely has moments where it can be very good, but I typically don't like the playstyle where I'm just consistently drawing cards over and over and over and over again. Untouchable, which has my favourite mechanic in this game. In Slay the Spire 1, I loved the Silent for doing discard builds and getting through your deck as quickly as possible. In this game they've made it even more fun by applying Sly to cards, which means that when you discard them they are played automatically. And Blade Dance, which allows us to add 3 shivs to our hand and exhaust it. Again, this is really good damage because this is technically 12 damage for 1 point, or if we upgrade it, it goes up to 4 shivs, so that's 16 damage for 1 energy. Since we're doing a poison build, I'm not going to really focus on this, although it's still a good choice in this situation. I'm actually going to take the Untouchable, even though it's a 2 cost card. It does have the ability to be played automatically if I discard it, and it goes up to 8 block. And I'm going to try and pick up some discard cards and poison cards. Here we're going to Smith because we've still got full HP, and we're going to upgrade After Image because it now becomes innate, which, as we've mentioned before, means it will be in my first hand every single combat. And it's a card I want to be playing turn 1 every single combat. This is an enemy I don't believe we saw in our Ironclad run, Fogmog, who will summon an enemy to help him in the combat. We'll put poison on him. This little summon that he has, all it will do every single turn is try and put 3 dazeds into our draw pile and bulk out our deck. And all we have to do to stop that from happening is hit him with 1 strike every single turn, just to prevent it. It will heal every turn and try and keep doing it, but we just keep on top of that until we feel like we can get a free kill. Then we'll do 2 defense so we don't take any damage this turn. We can neutralise, so he's only doing 6. We'll use a defend, we'll hit him. Unfortunately, as much as Ironclad was big damage and it was quite fun and impactful, this character is more meticulously planned, playing a bit slower and trying to work through your outs. So we'll do an attack, we'll do a defend, and as much as I didn't hit him there, I want to try and get through this character before he scales too much and starts doing too big damage. Bouncing Flask, hopefully that works. Not exactly what I was looking for, but he dies from the poison, and then this turn we can actually kill this guy. Here we've got the option of follow through, deal 7 damage if you have 5 or more cards in your hand, hits an additional time, and this goes up to 9 damage, and that can potentially be 18 if you have 5 or more other cards in your hand. Outbreak, which is a power that means that every 3 times that I apply poison, which means every Bouncing Flask I play, this is going to do 11 damage to all enemies, so this is going to be excellent in fights that have more than 1 enemy on the field, and when upgraded it was up to 15 damage for all enemies. We're definitely taking this card, although this is also a really good card I like to see sometimes, of free innate damage turn 1 every combat that goes up to 15 damage for free. This is an excellent card if you don't mind having an innate card that takes up a slot, but you almost always want to be doing damage turn 1 anyway, so this is a very good card a lot of the time. But we're going to be taking Outbreak to synergise with our poison. Here we're going to smith a card, and I think in terms of efficiency, as much as we have our poison options, the best card to always try and upgrade as early as possible as silent, other than After Image purely because we got it, is Neutralise, because it goes up to 2 weaken instead of 1 weaken. And while this doesn't seem too impactful at first glance, having this last 2 turns instead of 1 is going to have a lot of effect in our future combats, and you'll see why. Bronze Scales we saw in our last game, which just allows us to reflect damage, and it's actually even better here since we're focusing on defense and trying to chip down the enemy slowly over time. We'll play After Image. And here we're already going to see some good synergy here, because that's going to weaken him this turn and make him do 8 damage, but it'll do it again next turn. This guy's only doing 3 and buffing himself. It looks like we're going to have to finally take some damage. So we'll just do this. As much as I could use the block potion and gain 12, they're only doing 11, so they're only actually going to deal 9 to me. So I'm not getting full efficiency, so I'm going to keep it for the Elite Act. I don't mind taking a little bit of damage here. Unfortunately, the weaken hasn't worked out in this situation, because I forgot that he debuffs me on the second turn, but I promise that that was a good decision to do that buff. It will work out. Now that he's hit himself with the thorns that we had going, he's going to die next turn automatically, and this is now at 16. So like I said, I want to try and get max efficiency out of this potion. It's now going to give us a little bit more. I'll play Outbreak and Strike into this guy. We can use the potion here so we don't take any damage. And we kill him with the Bouncing Flask. I do realise that that was 1 point less efficient after that I've done it, but it still worked out in the end, so all is well. Here we have Mirage, we've already seen, gain block equal to poison on all enemies. Ricochet is another Sly card which allows us to hit an enemy for 4 times, which is really good in a lot of your fights when you want to hit them more than once, especially with a card like Envenom. This is a really fun power, but it's also a little bit of a trap. It's 2 cost, and even when it's upgraded it stays 2 cost, and it applies 2 poison whenever you deal unblocked damage. This pairs really well with Shivs, but it's pretty high risk because you're trying to play a 2 cost power, and it takes a bit of time before this really becomes impactful. As much as I love this card, and I am definitely taking it right now, a lot of people would say it's not a particularly good power. But I want to make it work, so we're going to try for it. Here we're getting quite a few good options. Footwork is a power that gives us more dexterity, which means we can block for more, which is really good. Bouncing Flask we already know is a great card and it's working well for us at the moment, so another one wouldn't be a bad idea. Escape Plan is technically just a draw card, but it can potentially give us 3 block if we draw a skill, which we have a lot of skills, so that's pretty high chance. I like taking these if it's a card reward, but not really in shops like this. Dagger Throw we've seen. And then Strangle is a card that deals 8 damage, but also for every card we play after that, the enemy loses another 2. And when that's upgraded, it's 10 damage and 3. The efficiency of this ranges based on how many cards you play in a turn, but if you're playing a Shiv deck and you're playing a lot of 0 cost cards, this has the potential to do a lot of damage. Our colourless cards this turn are 9 damage for choosing 1 out of 3 cards to add to your draw pile into your hand. This is a really cool card if you're looking to get a specific card out of your draw pile. And then we have Bolus, which does 3 damage, which doesn't seem like a lot, but every single turn it comes back to your hand, and it's 0 cost, so it's just 3 free damage, or 4 free damage that you can do every single turn. I don't think it's impactful on every single build, but it definitely has its uses. And then we obviously have the option to remove a card, which if we look here, if we scroll down, it'll now say that this is going to be removed after our next combat, which is really good. That will take us down to 16. And then I could potentially remove another strike, possibly. But what I might end up doing is just taking the membership card so that in future, when we hit other shops, it's going to be a lot cheaper and we can give ourselves much more variety, because there's nothing here that's jumping out to me as a snap pick at the moment that's amazing. The only thing would potentially be some potions to help us in the next combat, which, because that halves the price of everything, we can still do, or we could still remove a card. And I think generally I would rather remove another strike, because we want more skills, we want to defend as much as possible, and we want to win with poison. Here we're going to smith our Envenom so that it applies the 2 poison per hit. And here we get our Frog Parasite again, which we did see in Act 1. Drop a Bouncing Flask. We've got the infections in our hand. Here we'll apply Envenom, as it feels like a good point to do it. We'll defend, take a tiny bit of chip damage. We'll use Outbreak this turn since it feels like we've got the freedom to. We'll apply 2 strikes. Unfortunately, we take these extra 3 status cards. Last time we played this character, we were fortunate enough to not ever see these cards, but this time we'll get to see how dangerous they actually are by the looks of it. One thing I can do here that's quite cool is I can kill him mid-turn while I still have energy. And now when these come out, I still have the capability of hitting them. I'll weaken this guy because I know he's going to hit me next turn, and then I'll defend to offset the damage from infection. It's important to note that when they hit you, they still go into your discard pile and you draw them again. So when they're in your deck, they will be in your deck for the rest of the combat, and they become very hard to get rid of. Here, because of the Outbreak dealing a living to all enemies, I'm going to actually use Bouncing Flask to do that insane damage to everyone. Now he's dead at the end of the turn, and this guy isn't far off. We are going to take a little bit of damage here. He's going to kill himself when he hits me. And now, but we need to be very unlucky. Yeah, we're okay. We get to discard. Here we have an option where we can discard one of the infections to not take the 3 damage, but fortunately in this turn we actually get untouchable, which means we can discard this for an extra 6 block. Then we can defend. Also, when you discard this to play it, since you're technically playing it, the after image procs, and I actually got 7 block from that instead of 6. So here we take the 6 damage from the infection cards, and then we take 8 damage from this guy. I know I said I would get to showcase how dangerous these really are, and they still haven't seemed that dangerous, but I promise there will be runs that this will ruin you. They are very scary at times. And this lone little guy finally goes down. And now the Guilty has been removed from our deck, so we're down to 15 cards. We take the 35 gold, we take the Snecko Oil, and we take a new relic, Mercury Hourglass. At the start of your turn, deal 3 damage to all enemies. Again, this is really good for a defense-based build, since you want to just stall out turns anyway. This will be a really good source of damage. Here we have Poison Stab, we've already got this in our deck. Expertise means we can draw until we have 6 cards in our hand. This would have synergised well with the Speedster power we saw earlier on. It's also just good if we have a lot of energy and we've run out of cards in our hand and we want to try and draw more. And this is one of my favourite cards with this character. Unfortunately, only if I'm playing a Shiv build, which we don't have any of at the moment, but I'm still tempted to take it just in case we manage to find some Shivs and make that work with our Envenom power. But I won't take it and play it on the safe side, since I'm trying to do a video of decisions you should make, not should I try and help my gambling brain try and do better in a situation and create a mental build. So we'll just skip that one. The smarter decision is to not try and hope for builds to just form around you, but to actually use what you have currently and add to it and know for certain that you're making good choices. So that's what we're going to do there. Here we have an enemy that I don't believe we saw in our Ironclad game. He's called Divine Shambler. Turn 1 he's going to deal multi-hit damage to ultimately deal 8 since we weakened him. And here we're just going to block his damage. In turn 2 he's going to do a Malicious Intent, which means it affects cards that we use. In this case he's going to do a little attack, and all of our attacks next turn are going to cost 1 more, which in our case is not a bad thing because we don't play them too often anyway. So I'll just play Envenom. and then I'll play Survivor so I don't take any damage this turn. Impressively, I managed to not draw any block cards, but sometimes that happens, and as we can see, all of our attacks cost 1 more, and even the 0 cost is now a 1 cost, which isn't great. So we're going to use the Snecko Oil here because I don't really want to take 16 damage. We randomise all the costs completely, and we can play Defend for free. We can play Bouncing Flask for free, which is really good. We can now do 2 more things. We can now play Flechettes to get a lot of damage off. Look at the payoff with the Envenom. It can be good. And then we can finally finish him off. Here we've got an option of Cloak and Dagger to gain 6 block, meaning it's already better than a Defend, and it adds a Shiv into our hand. So this is where we start getting Shivs. As much as Knife Trap would now look pretty good, because this gives us 2 Shivs, it wasn't worth taking a card just to hope for something to happen later on. Flechettes, as we've seen, is pretty good, and I could make it work by picking another one, but I prefer Cloak and Dagger because it's another skill which makes our current Flechettes proc, and this gives us more Shivs, which consistently gives us, when upgraded, 2 attacks to scale on Envenom and do consistent damage for free, whilst Skewer does 8 damage X times, which goes up to 11 damage X times. This is good if you have a lot of energy manipulation, which at the moment we don't. So I'm going to take Cloak and Dagger. Now we have a decision to make where we get an almost fully efficient heal, or we can smith a card. And the boss that we're going to fight this time is different from our Ironclad run. This is Ceremonial Beast, who will do a lot of damage and scale over time, and we don't have a lot of health to block a lot of damage, so it might be a good idea to heal, because I don't think there's anything here that really needs a smith. I think personally, if I was playing this run myself, I would smith one of these cards probably. I think I would smith Bouncing Flask and give it an extra time to proc, but I think for safety, since I'm doing the video, I'll make this option because I think it's the safer decision to do, and it will almost definitely get me through the rest of this combat. On turn 1 it's going to give itself a buff, so we have the space to use powers. Thankfully we draw our most expensive one, and then we can play After Image. So as much as we have 16 cards in our deck, with 3 of those being powers, that means that when we've played them we only have 13 cards to play with, which means we'll be cycling quite a lot and we get to play the cards that we want to play very often. Here I'm going to press Outbreak, I'm going to Survivor to get rid of Bouncing Flask, and then Strike, so I'm only taking 1 damage this turn. Another thing I should note is that Outbreak, every 3 times you apply poison, does apply to the Envenom poisons that we're doing. So when I hit him here, when I hit him 1 more time, that's going to happen again. As we can see, this has a little 2 on it, which means the next time it's going to proc. We can use Survivor to use Untouchable to gain a lot of block. He's doing 15 damage, but as you can see, every single turn he's gaining 2 strength as he hits us, so he continually is going to do a lot more damage over time. And this little badge that has a 150 on it means that when he reaches 150 health, he's going to get stunned and lose all of his strength bonuses, so that's currently what we're working towards. Now the strategy that I like to employ, if I can, is to get as close to 150 as possible, not kill him that turn, or not hit him below it that turn, but instead try and get a fresh turn to hit him as far down as possible, because the phase 2 of the combat is slightly more difficult. So here we're going to use Defend again to try and mitigate damage, and then use our Poison Stab. This is now down to 1, so next time we do it we're going to deal 11 damage. And that's going to matter here in terms of trying to get as close to that 150 as possible. So I'm going to deal this damage, do some maths. That would take us down to 14. I think that's too much. We'll hit him with Neutralize, hit him with Strike, and it's already too much. We'll just go for it. And then we'll do Cloak and Dagger. Didn't quite work out in the end, but he's already down to 100, which is more than I could ask for. And as we can see, we're at 28 poison, so he's taking a lot of damage every turn for free. What makes the second part of this fight more difficult, usually, I think we'll be okay, and we could have got away with smithing. But every second turn now, he's going to have this ringing effect, meaning we can only play one of these cards. So if you come into this part of the fight and you've got low HP, You can only ever play one block card, so that's something to keep in mind when fighting this enemy. Here we're just going to play Flechettes because I have no risk of ever dying. And now he dies from poison. And unfortunately I feel it's quite sad that this screen always pops up too early because that death animation is my favourite in the whole game. Weird thing to say, but I think it's very pretty. We get 100 gold, we get a regen potion, a new one of a regen mechanic. So that starts at 5 and then counts down to 4, 3, 2, 1. So effectively this heals 15 HP if you use it and you last the whole fight. So it's really good to use in elite and boss encounters, since you know those are going to last quite a few turns. I wouldn't use it in hallways, otherwise you're not getting the most out of it. And again, as much as that wasn't the most efficient fight because I did have the space to get an upgrade, it's not entirely the end of the world. If you would rather play it safe, always play it safe. It's just the better thing to do. Here we have a few good options. I love all of these cards very, very much. Shadow Meld doubling block gain this turn. I mean, with the build we have at the moment, we can comfortably use this and then make sure that we never take damage from any enemy at that point. Abrasive is a 3-cost power, but you're never playing it. You're always discarding it, and it gives you an extra dexterity, which means all of your block cards will now give you a little bit more block. This is like strength, but for your block. And you get 4 thorns, which is the buff that we get from bronze scales, but instead of doing 3 we would then do 7, or if we upgrade it, it would go from 3 to 9, which is a lot of thorns to have. So this is really good on a defensive build, and I'm very, very tempted with this one. But we also have this one, which is whenever we draw a card this turn, apply 2 poison to all enemies. At the moment we don't have many mechanics that allow us to draw cards, if any. We don't have any cards that allow us to draw cards. So the best option is Abrasive at this moment, although this is a very, very tempting option since we're doing a poison build and that synergizes so well with other things. But maybe we'll have another chance later on. So I'm going to pick Abrasive just now. Apologies if all of that was a bit rambly. I'm trying to translate from my mind to the screen in front of me. And there, similarly to how we did the Ironclad, I'll stop here. Thank you for watching. I hope you're appreciating the content so far. I know I feel very raw and fresh and I'm making a few mistakes here and there, but I just want to try and deliver as honest an experience and just translate what I'm saying and what I'm doing and hopefully help you out with your decision making along the way. As much as I might be flubbing a little bit here and there, we're still doing really well. We didn't lose our first run and we're doing quite solid on this run. So until next time, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.